This is Africa, Lake Tanganyika. These forested mountain slopes rise from the lake's east shore in the nation of Tanzania. This is the habitat of the chimpanzee, the animal most like man. The chimpanzee has been known to science for over 300 years, yet only recently have scientists discovered that knowledge of the chimpanzee may expand man's understanding of himself. Because food is every creature's most precious resource, the study of chimpanzee feeding habits may help us better comprehend and satisfy the needs of our own species. Since 1960, Dr. Jane Goodall and her team of researchers have pursued this study here in Tanzania's Gombe National Park.
It is December, the rainy season, when a variety of fruits are ripe in these mountain valleys. In the morning, the chimpanzees leave their sleeping nests and begin the day's search for food. Some days they will travel 5 miles or more. At other times, they remain all day in one valley. There is usually an abundance of food, and the chimpanzees often have time to groom or play in the shade. But in the height of the dry season, it is sometimes difficult to find enough to eat. They may visit tree after tree, only to find the food gone, harvested perhaps by the monkeys or baboons who share Gombe's food resources. But the chimpanzee's large size and highly developed brain make him a formidable competitor. Once the chimpanzee was thought to be a vegetarian, but we now know that he, like man, is an omnivore. David Greybeard has found a mzazi tree loaded with fruit. He carefully selects only the ripe fruit, squeezing and pinching before picking one off. Goliath, David's close companion, eats leaves. The chimpanzees also eat buds, blossoms, seeds and pith. It takes at least half the daylight hours to satisfy their hunger. They feed for an hour or two at one food source, then move on to another, often stopping to rest in between. Chimpanzees find most of their food in trees. With a strength far greater than that of man, they hang and swing with little apparent effort. Movements through the trees require good coordination of hand and eye, and quick judgment of distances and the strength of branches. A full-grown male weighs up to 110 pounds, yet he moves gracefully, and sometimes very quickly. Baboons and monkeys, because they are lighter, might be expected to be more efficient than chimpanzees in gleaning food from the ends of branches. But the chimpanzee's long arms compensate for his weight. Hanging from a strong branch, he reaches out to food that would otherwise lie beyond his grasp. On the ground, an upright sitting posture frees both hands to gather berries. His precision grip of thumb and forefinger is nearly as efficient as ours. The chimpanzee's lips serve as an extra hand. They are incredibly sensitive and enable him to easily open tiny pods and extract the seeds. The chimpanzee's choice of food is often puzzling. What attracts him to an old piece of wood? It may contain minerals he needs, or perhaps it helps clean his teeth.
Excited calls inform other chimpanzees that there is ripe fruit in this oil nut palm. Chimpanzees love palm nuts, which are one of the staple items in their diet. But like so many of their foods, the ripe red fruits cannot simply be picked. They grow deep in prickly cups. Time and considerable patience are required to extract them.
As youngsters travel the familiar paths with their elders, they gradually learn what to eat and where different foods are found. They learn, too, that some foods taste better at different times of the year. If an individual isn't finished when the group moves on, he may carry the remains of his meal along with him and, like Flo here, eat it later in comfort. Wild chimpanzees often examine birds' nests looking for eggs and fledglings. Often the sound of baby birds alerts a chimpanzee, who then climbs up to inspect the nest. On this occasion, Goliath finds a weaver bird's nest empty. Mr. McGregor and many of the other chimpanzees developed a great love of hen's eggs, which they took from our camp. They always chewed them with leaves. Some large fruits are soft and easy to open. The strychnos, however, is so hard that a chimpanzee can't open it with his teeth. Usually he cracks it on a tree trunk. But sometimes he brings it down to the ground and pounds it open on a rock. Youngsters under 4 years of age usually can't open a strychnos, although they frequently try. Chimpanzees usually travel in small parties when food is plentiful and evenly distributed. But when large crops of tasty food ripen in 1 or 2 trees, the scattered chimpanzees of a community may join in larger groups. There may be calls and excitement, and the males often perform aggressive displays as they reunite. Here, in the midst of a display, a male loses his balance and falls. He wasn't hurt, but we saw another break his neck in just such an incident. In the early days, when most of the chimpanzees were afraid of me, one male, David Greybeard, visited my camp and took some bananas. To encourage his friendship, I brought him a large supply, and he began to come regularly. Eventually he was accompanied by others, Shy William and Goliath. After a while more chimpanzees came. Banana feeding attracted the scattered individuals of the community to one place, where they could be more carefully studied. Now we could have a closer look at gestures and communication signals, and could follow almost day by day the development of infants. Our understanding of chimpanzee behavior increased dramatically. But there were major drawbacks. No longer did the chimpanzees arrive in small, quiet parties. Instead, they invaded our camp in huge groups. Often, many adult males arrived at the same time, performing their arrival displays one after the other. They searched the tents for bananas and played on the canvas. New objects were added to their displays. They chewed up cloth or books and papers. In our first attempt to organize the feeding, we simply put bananas in holes in the ground. This attracted baboons, and aggressive competition between chimpanzees and baboons increased. We hoped that feeding less frequently might reduce the number of animals loitering about, but they were prepared to wait. When we did put out bananas, the aggression continued and became more violent. Jomeo finally reassures Passion, and together they share the bananas that caused their dispute. Then we built boxes and spread them over a wide area, hoping to prevent the dominant chimpanzees from taking all of the bananas. But the situation got worse. The smell of bananas in boxes they couldn't open added a new frustration. Attacks were more violent and often came with little warning.
Today at Gombe, fighting over bananas is almost a thing of the past. Each individual is fed only once in 10 days, and then only alone or in a small group. If a large group comes to the feeding area, it is not fed.
Many primate mothers will share food with their offspring. Goblin has taken a mouthful of bananas from Melissa. We were excited when we discovered food sharing among adults. Mr. McGregor hands a banana skin to Melissa. Here Fabian, Flo's young adult son, patiently waits to inherit his mother's banana skin. Fifi tries for some of her brother's banana. Old David Greybeard is amazingly tolerant of Fifi as she reaches into his can of bananas and begs insistently. In June and July, small caterpillars can be found, hiding behind their webs under the leaves of the wild custard apple. Insects are an important addition of animal protein to the chimpanzee's diet. Female chimpanzees in particular, who have less access to meat than males, spend many hours searching out these caterpillars. Weaver ants make nests by drawing leaves together with a kind of silk that their own larvae spin. Chimpanzees pick these nests and squeeze them, then carefully tear the leaves apart, picking off and eating the crushed insects. The most commonly eaten insects at Gombe are the termites. At the start of the rainy season, the reproductive termites grow wings and fly off to establish new colonies. When weather conditions are suitable for such emigrations, baboons, chimpanzees and other animals gather at the termite mounds to feed on the insects as they emerge. When no termites are visible, the baboons feed elsewhere. but the chimpanzees know that good food can still be found just below the surface, and they have learned how to get it. Figan uses a tool to fish for the insects. A companion watches closely. It is this kind of curiosity that makes it possible for feeding techniques to be handed down from generation to generation. We haven't seen chimpanzees eat rodents, but certainly they're curious about them. When Konrad Lorenz saw this shot, he said, "Ah, here is the first zoologist." Chimpanzees at Gombe have an interesting relationship with the baboons. Youngsters of the two species sometimes play together, but adult chimpanzees will occasionally hunt and kill young baboons. Male baboons hasten to the defense of an infant in danger, but they may be too late. Chimpanzees taking part in a kill may divide the carcass. Meat is a much prized food, and each individual with a portion is quickly surrounded by others who want to share. Huxley wants some of this baboon kill, and Mike allows him to join in. The success or failure of begging may depend on the amount of food available, the personality of the individual with the food, and the relationship between him and the individual who begs. Hugo was almost always stingy. Here, he refuses to share with JB. When JB makes even a slight move toward the carcass, Hugo rebuffs him and turns away. David Greybeard has ended up with a large piece of a baboon carcass. He is soon joined by higher-ranking Goliath and by an adolescent female pooch. As Goliath begs, David actually breaks off a morsel and places it in his friend's hand. When Goliath asks for more, David pushes his hand away. In his prime, Mike was one of the most successful hunters of the Gombe chimpanzees. He was top-ranking at this time, yet showed a tolerant attitude toward most of the community. Colobus monkeys are the most frequent victims of the chimpanzees. Old Flo eats leaves with her meat just as we eat salad. Fifi is at first cautious about joining in, but Mike ignores her, and she becomes bolder. When Charlie moves in, Fifi is scared away. Charlie avoids Mike's glare. Mike threatens him. Charlie whimpers. Then, in sudden frustration, he displays, redirecting his aggression against subordinates nearby. Finally, Charlie disappears into the forest, and the others once more gather around Mike and his kill. The major parts have been eaten, and Flo begs for scraps. She is an inveterate meat-eater and an expert beggar. Experience has taught her to be persistent. Mike is incredibly tolerant. Finally, she gets her reward. Small bones change hands many times before they are chewed up. Large bones are cracked and the marrow sucked out. Meat is a major factor in the chimpanzee's diet. Accordingly, nothing is wasted. Even the hair is a plaything.
Food can powerfully influence the social behavior of chimpanzees. For the most part, they forage peacefully. But when favorite foods are ripe or when there is meat, they may gather in large, excited groups. Artificial feeding conditions stimulated aggressive competition of unusual violence.
As the chimpanzees roam the forested hills, searching for fruits, for insects, using tools, cooperating in a hunt, and sharing food, they are probably behaving very much like our own early ancestors.